The Detroit Pistons continue to be in a bunch of trade rumors, and I'm going to discuss today the pros and cons of the Pistons not making any moves and instead just staying pat. We'll break it down in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years, been a contingent media member over the last 3 years, and I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I also got to thank you guys for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. We all appreciate all of your guys' support. Later on, we'll talk about, should Chaz Lanier, I didn't think I'd ever be asking this question or having a segment like this on the podcast at the beginning of the year, but here I am. Should the Detroit Pistons play Chaz Lanier a little more? And then later on as well, we'll discuss Jalen Duren joins Cade Cunningham and fellow teammate Ausar Thompson by being on the cover of Slam magazine. We'll talk about that, how cool that is, and all the stuff that comes with it a little bit later. But let's start with talking about the pros and cons of staying pat if you are the Detroit Pistons. Last episode, I went over 3 mock trades that were made by Bleacher Report, whether I would make those trades or not. I talked about what some of the recent reporting, some of the recent rumors surrounding the Detroit Pistons. We did get another rumor today before I started recording from Jake Fisher that said the Pistons have had internal conversations about trading for Michael Porter Jr. So that's a recent report, or a recent rumor, I guess I should say there. Talked about some things that I've heard, all that stuff. The Pistons are going, as I said in that episode, and I'm going to say it again here, the Pistons are going to remain in the trade rumors, the trade talks, they're going to remain in the news cycle until the trade deadline, because there is reason to believe they could be buyers or at least try to improve the team. But now let's talk about the other side. If the Pistons were to just not make any moves, if they were to decide we're not doing anything, we're just going to go past this deadline to see how this team plays out the rest of the year, what is the pros and what are the pros, I should say, and what are the cons of doing that? So the first pro that I think a lot of people that are against making a trade would bring up, and I think it would be, you don't risk ruining the team chemistry. You don't risk ruining what you potentially already have brewing this season. You don't bring maybe a personality into the locker room that maybe doesn't fit. You don't trade some guys that maybe you feel like fit with what you're doing right now for someone you haven't seen yet, and maybe they come to the team and they don't fit as well as you think, and now you're not playing as well. That's I think the main pro that people would that are in favor of not making trades would bring up here. I think that's the number one pro there. Number one con of not making any moves, of not doing anything, and there's levels to this, but the first con I would come up with is that, okay, actually, let's talk about this one as a pro and a con, because this actually it can go both ways. That is the depth of this team. Pro is you remain this deep, you remain able to go 11, 12 deep with your rotation, and you're able to just punish teams for a full 48 minutes on a random night, and if someone goes down, you have someone to come in and fill their place. You're able to just play hard-nosed defense and play aggressive for the entire game. Maybe you can do it in the playoffs. You go deep in the playoffs, 48 minutes of just pressing, that kind of thing. You keep how deep your team is, and it ends up paying off for you. That is a pro of it. However, a con of that situation would then be your team's too deep, and you have too many guys for one position, and you have too many guys trying to do the same thing, and you have too many guys that need minutes, you have too many guys that need the ball, and you start to see some cracks, you start to see some issues become, not only on the floor, but maybe in the locker room with guys that maybe want to play a little more. And now all of a sudden that locker room vibe is not as much of a great locker room vibe. Maybe there's some guys that want to play more. I think the main part of that would be having too many guards, which is what the main thing we've talked about in this podcast, having so many guards and having so many guys that are playing a lot one night, not playing the next night, not playing this night, but playing a lot the next night, and guys that's not being able to get into a rhythm, And that end up hurting you because guys maybe aren't as accustomed to playing with each other still. I think you've seen that pop up a little bit at times where guys are still trying to get accustomed to playing with each other. Then they don't play the next night. Then they come back in the next game, and now they're trying to catch that whole rhythm back again. So I think how deep this team is a good thing, but I also think there's a possibility of it being something that hurts them in the long run, especially when you're deep at one position but not very deep at another, which is the 4 position. So I think that's the pro and con there. The pros of another pro of maybe not making a move. You continue to give these young guys full reign, and you give, Cade's already here, but you give Duren, you give Ausar, you give Ron, you give Ivey, you give Sasser. You give these guys the full year. You don't make any moves. You don't mess with them. And you allow them to try to develop throughout the year and hope for, at the end of the year when you're going into the playoffs, they're playing their best basketball. They've improved. And it's fun, and you find out, okay, we never even really need to make a move anyways because these guys made the improvements we needed, and they ended up filling in the holes that we have. That's one of the pros. A con with that, you rely too much on these young guys. You rely too much on them, and you end the season maybe as the 1st or 2nd seed. But maybe you end up going home early because you put too much stock into some of these guys who are either bench players or some guys that maybe just aren't ready for what you're asking of them to do. And now that kind of pops up in the playoffs, and a team really hammers that home and is able to send you home early, whether it be the 1st round or maybe early in the 2nd round. That's pro and con there. This is something that they're going to. I don't envy Trajan's position because you can make an argument for either way, and there's risk with staying pat. There's risk with making a move, but those are the pros and cons that I immediately think of when you say, okay, the Pistons are staying pat. What's the good things that could happen from this? What are the bad things that can happen from this? Those are the ones that come to my mind, and it's something that I know the front office is talking over and trying to weigh out. Is it worth it or is it not worth it? Which risk outweighs the reward? We'll figure it out. Trade deadline is February 5th. As I've said now 3 times. I think 3 times, but I'm about to say it a 4th time. You're going to continue to hear the Pistons involved in these, so just be prepared. We'll see what happens. But those are the pros and cons that I have for what could happen if you decide to not make any moves and you decide to just stand pat. So let me know, comment section down below. I want to hear from you guys. Tell me pros and cons. Don't just tell me a pro and a con. I want to hear from you guys. What are some pros and cons that you guys think of if the Pistons decided to stay pat and not do anything? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, should the Detroit Pistons play 2nd round rookie Chaz Lanier more for the rest of the season? We'll talk about it coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season. FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame and limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boost, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Now I've got to tell you about another one of our sponsors, Wayfair. Give your home the refresh it needs at wayfair.com. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair as a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what you're looking for your style and budget. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home with Wayfair. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I also want to thank you guys again for helping make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in America. We all appreciate all of you guys' support. You guys are real ones out there. Appreciate all of you guys. This is a question that I've had a lot of you guys messaging me asking about. I've seen some comments underneath the YouTube videos over them. Also, like I've said this a few times, but a lot of the podcast platforms that you guys listen on have added comment sections on there. So if you guys want to comment, if you're listening on an audio platform, you guys want to comment as well. A lot of them, I think honestly, most of them besides the Apple platform have comments. So, and those have reviews. So if you want to leave a review, go ahead. But most of them, especially Spotify, I've seen has comments. So if you want to leave some, go ahead. I'll be sure to look through them all. But my point here is I've had a lot of you guys reach out to me and bring this up. And I've seen it actually get talked about in the community about after how well Chaz played a few fourth quarters ago against Chicago Bulls, which, by the way, JB Bickerstaff was asked at practice today. I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 13th. He was at practice this morning about why Jaden Ivey hasn't been playing a lot in the fourth quarters. And he basically said, trying to find the right guys. You just want to play the right dudes basically in the fourth quarter, who you think will give you the best chance to win. I mean, he mentioned that he felt like Chaz was going to give them the boost that they needed, and he was going to do exactly what they were seeking, and he felt like he really played well in that fourth quarter, and he felt like that was the right move. The reason why I bring that up is because that fourth quarter is really why fans, I feel like, are starting to ask, hey, shouldn't Chaz play? Like, this team needs shooting. This team needs some guys that I've pointed this out numerous times in the podcast when he has played. His relocation skills, the IQ there as a shooter, the feel he has within the half-court offense is probably one of my favorite things about him. Obviously, you have to be a good shooter for that to matter. He is a good shooter. But that's one of my favorite things about him. But either way, there's a lot of people that are wondering, hey, this team needs shooting, obviously. Why don't they just play Chaz? And there's a few reasons why, obviously, they can't play Chaz. And I think this is one of the issues that I talked about in the first segment here. When we talked about the issues of one of the cons of staying pat is you have too many guys that want to play, need to play, and you run into a problem where it's like, okay, you can't play everybody. So for what it's worth, the Pistons are 27th in three-point rate. They obviously struggle as a shooting team. They're not the greatest shooting team in the world. It's really Duncan Robinson and his friends. Cade has made a big jump as a pull-up three-point shooter. But it really is Duncan Robinson and his friends when it comes to shooting from deep. And Chaz probably is the next best movement. Actually, not probably. I would just outright say he is the next best movement shooter on the team. The problem is that how are you going to play Chaz when you have to play Cade, when you have to play Duncan, obviously, who's at the 2. You're having to play Caris LeVert. You're having to play Dennis Jenkins right now. You are giving some spot minutes at times and letting him ride out the minutes of Marcus Sasser. Like, you're giving him a chance. Jaden Ivey has to play. And now you're also asking, well, why can't they play Chaz? Chaz provides the shooting. Okay, well, if you're playing Chaz, who are you not playing? Who is it that you're taking out the lineup at that point? Like, JB is already being asked over and over and over again. It feels like every single practice, he's being asked, why isn't Jaden Ivey playing more? If you play Chaz, Ivey's not playing as much. He's cutting into somebody's minutes. He cut into Jaden Ivey's minutes against the Bulls. He's going to cut into minutes of Caris LeVert. He'll cut into minutes of Dennis Jenkins. He'll cut into minutes of Marcus Sasser. You have too many guys. You just do. And I think that's probably the biggest pro for making a move, just to clear that guard room up and provide depth somewhere else so you don't have this constant question of, who am I going to play? Who's the best solution here? And I do think that there is, like, players don't like having this inconsistency. Like, guys aren't going to make a big deal out of it. Guys are going to be a good teammate. Guys are going to be, say the right things publicly. But players do not like being yanked in and out of rotations. They don't like being yanked in and out of, one night you're playing 20 minutes, the next night you're playing 15. Next night you're playing 12 minutes, next night you're playing 25. Like, guys like consistently. The players like having consistency to their roles. And if you're constantly fluctuating, throwing a guy in and then taking a guy out, that it just causes problems for everyone. I do think that if the Pistons continue to run into these, and there's no reason to think that they won't continue to run into some of these problems. If they continue to run into some of these problems when it comes to spacing the floor and shooting, I do think there needs to be some heavy thought actually to playing Chaz. Simply because he's the only other one that provides it. And I know you can't play, you probably don't feel very comfortable playing Chaz and Duncan. The defense would just, I understand why you'd feel uncomfortable doing that for stretches of the game. But like when Duncan comes out, if you were to play Chaz, now obviously Chaz is a second-round rookie. He would actually have to maintain his shooting. Like so far in the year, he's only shooting 34%. Now he has such a long history of being a great three-point shooter on incredible volume, and we see how good his shot. Like I don't think anyone actually questions that if he played consistently, whether he'd be a good shooter. Like I think everyone kind of just acknowledges that he would be a great shooter. I don't think there's any reason to believe he wouldn't be. But I'm bringing that up because he obviously would actually end up having to. It couldn't just be an idea at that point. It actually would have to be playing out. He can't be shooting 34%. He would actually have to be hitting a higher percentage than that. I think he would. But maybe when Duncan comes out, so when Duncan's off the floor, you have Chaz on the floor. And now you at least have one movement shooter on the floor at all times. One really good guy off the ball who knows how to relocate, find open spots, and space the floor for you. Would that be interesting? I think so. Do I think it would solve the Pistons shooting issues? No. I think they still need to acquire another shooter. But the shooting has gone, the spacing concerns and the shooting concerns have gone on. I mean, they are the first seed in the East, so I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm panicking over it, because I'm not. But it's very clear the team does have a shooting desire. They need more shooting, and Chaz provides it. You just have to tell me who you're not playing then at that point. Because you can't play everybody. Like, there's a lot of people that want Marcus Sasser to play, and he only got 5 minutes this past game. After 2 games ago, I believe playing like 25 and scoring like 20 and a half. Like, he was incredible. And he only played 5 minutes the other night. There's a whole flock of people that want Jaden Ivey to play way more. And he didn't even get to play the fourth quarter against the Bulls. And he didn't play in the fourth quarter of this past game, really. He played 2 minutes and then was taken out. There's a whole flock of people that want Danis to play even more. Want him to just be solid and stone, the backup point guard, and get his minutes. I don't think there's a lot of flock of people wanting to see Karis. I'm not going to lie. Sorry, Karis, if you listen to the podcast. Sorry if this happens to come around. Like, can't say you have a lot of fans in the Pistons community. Doesn't mean you're not a good player. I'm not saying that. But I can't say that you have a bunch of... I don't know if there's a bunch of LeVert fans walking around the Detroit community. I'm sorry to break it to you. Nothing personal, but I think you know, it is what it is. But you get my point. I think that's the biggest reason why they should shift some of that depth to the wing position or the power forward position. I think that would really help them. But I don't know. I've really liked what I've seen from Chaz every single time he's played. I think he's a very smart player. He's obviously an older prospect, an older rookie. He was a 4-year guy in college. So he knows how to play the game. He doesn't ever really feel like overwhelmed when he's on the floor. He feels pretty comfortable, like he knows where he's supposed to be, he knows what he's supposed to do. He doesn't seem like lights are too bright for him, whatever. I really like what we've seen from Chaz. It's just I don't see how you really get to play him. So let me know, comment section down below. If you want Chaz to play and you want to have him providing that shooting for the team, who is it that you're not playing? And whose minutes should he be taking? And what would the rotation look like then? Let me know all that, because I don't see a clear way, so I don't think he's ever going to get real minutes for real, at least this year, unless a trade happens. If a trade doesn't happen, I don't see any way he can get real minutes at any point outside of the rare, oh, we need a spark, let's play Chaz for 6 minutes. Like, that's the only time I see him really getting minutes. But, yeah, let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. How you guys feel about this? Coming up, Jalen Duren got on the cover of Slam magazine. He is now the 3rd current Piston to do so. We'll break it down and talk about how cool that is coming up. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in-network, nearby, with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens and makes you feel comfortable, explains things clearly, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality, in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. You can check the verified patient reviews to get a real sense of what that doctor's vibe and communication style is. The real-time availability means you can book instantly with no phone tag. Appointments usually happen within 24 to 72 hours, and they can have same-day, sometimes even same-day openings. If I need to book care fast, this is the place I would go. It just makes the process simple. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. Head over to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. It was a fun day in the Pistons community because yet again, another Detroit Piston gets on the cover of Slam Magazine. We've had Cade grace the cover. I believe Cade's actually graced the cover twice, hasn't he? He had that one with the red jacket, and then he had the other one with like the teal, right? I think he's graced it twice, or maybe it might have been the same shoot, just two different covers. But you've had Cade Cunningham, you've had Ausar Thompson, I have one of theirs in the background. I have him and Amen over on this side, and then I have Ausar's over on this side. So Ausar's was on the Slam Magazine this offseason, and now Jalen Duren graces it. I saw that this is the first time that the Detroit Pistons have multiple current players that have been on the cover of Slam Magazine with the Pistons since the Going to Work teams. Since, I believe it was 2004 when the whole Going to Work team was on the cover of one. Before this, the last time you saw a Piston on a Slam Magazine, Allen Iverson. Actually, that cover was floating around today because of how many Pistons fans or how many Pistons players have been on the cover recently. At the same time, you had like a GQ article drop where Jalen Duren was asked about like his lifestyle, his diet. I don't think you guys really want to, I'm not too interested in what his diet is or anything. He did mention that he's a candy guy. I think he mentioned that he loves Sour Patch Kids. It seems like it seems like wasn't Dwight like interviewing, he like said that he ate candy before every game or whatever, like he was a big candy. Wasn't Andre also, what's up with the big man and just loving like candy? I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out. But yeah, there is an article dropped with Duren and that he talked about some of that stuff as well. I just think that every now and then, like I know we've done this before in the podcast, but every now and then I'd like to just, instead of like trying to break down the game, talk about trades, talk about people's roles, talk about players, how well they're playing, how bad they're playing, etc. Instead of doing that, every now and then I think it requires you to just sit back, and when you have like something like this happen where another Piston gets the cover of the Slam Magazine, for you to just sit back and realize this team a year and a half ago was in the middle of an offseason after having the worst season in franchise history. A year and a half ago. Worst season in franchise history. It wasn't long ago that they were on ESPN for, oh really, how long can they keep losing? It wasn't long ago where I was Darth Koo on the podcast every single day. Like it wasn't long ago when I was getting asked to do podcast interviews and radio interviews for places in Europe because the Pistons had went global because of how bad they were. Like it was not long ago at all. And all it took was a season and a half for everything to just switch like that to where not only are they a really good team, they are the best team in the Eastern Conference. In a year and a half, they've went from the worst team in the franchise's history to the best team in their entire conference. I saw on NBA Power Rankings today, I don't know if it was NBA.com or NBC, but I saw instead of being second, this is the first time they've been first. They overtook the Oklahoma City Thunder. There are people out there that believe that they are better than the OKC Thunder. And now, a young core that after losing 28 games in a row, going into an offseason where, again, a lot of people outside of Detroit like to talk about this young core like, oh, we've always believed in them. Oh, they've always been great. That is not the case at all. Like, they were a year and a half ago in the offseason, I was covering this team. I was listening to things that were being said. I heard things behind the scenes. Like, there was a lot of questions about this young core. About, was Cade even that good? Was Duren just a defensive liability, and would he ever develop? Ausar Thompson was coming off blood clots. Is he ever going to be, how much is that going to limit him? And will he ever develop offensively? Will he ever become this great defender that people like myself thought he could be? There was questions about literally every part of this young core going into the first season with JB Bickerstaff. There were not big believers across the world about the Pistons. And a year and a half later, Cade's been on a Slam magazine, Ausar Thompson's been on one, and Jalen Duren's been on one. Cade Cunningham is getting a season in 2K dedicated to him. Cade Cunningham is the topic of like 3 straight Carmelo Anthony podcasts. You got Cade Cunningham being the topic of like 2 straight Jeff Teague podcasts when they're talking about how he's absolutely amazing and they feel like he's the best in the East. You got Stephen A. Smith on ESPN talking about last week that the Pistons could win the championship this year. You got Carmelo saying he feels like the Pistons could win the championship this year. You got multiple national outlets talking about the Pistons in such a crazy glowing light, and their players receiving this kind of attention and respect that even during like the middle years of the 2010s when you had Andre on the team, and there was like a 2016 point where it was like, oh my God, are they actually building something? There was never this much attention paid to them. There was never this much respect paid to them. There was never a time where one of them were gracing magazines or, stuff like that. But now, in the matter of a year and a half, you've seen it completely flip and them become, it feels like partly some of the media's favorite players, or one of the favorite teams, I should say, like NBA communities, one of their favorite teams. Like the Pistons are talked about nonstop now. And they're getting national favoritism, I feel like. Nonstop now. They're getting more national TV games. They're playing on Peacock on Martin Luther King Day. Like, this segment was not for a big breakdown. This wasn't for a big, X's and O's talk. This was just simply for everyone who's listening to just sit back and realize, you guys, all the fans, the players on the team, but especially the fans, have been through a long, long time of not having a very good team, of not having positive vibes around the team, not getting respect nationally, all this stuff. And when you have stuff like this happen, it's cool to just be able to forget all the shooting concerns, forget about the rotation, who's going to play, are they going to make it, forget all that stuff. Just sit back and realize the Pistons are 28-10. They're first in Eastern Conference. Cade was on a cover of Slam. Ausar was on a cover of Slam. Jalen Duren was on a cover of Slam, all within the last year and a half. They're being talked about nonstop. Everyone loves their players, apparently. Like, it seems like everyone just loves the Pistons' young core. They're fun to watch. You enjoy watching them, and they're winning. Just sit back and acknowledge that and just be happy about that, because this was something that the Pistons haven't had. We're like close to 20 years now. It's been that long, and this is where they're at. I understand. I especially me. I love talking about the X and O's and breaking down the game. Some people love talking about trade rumors, all that stuff. And especially mid-season, even when you're winning, there tends to be a want or just a natural instinct to, oh yeah, the team's great, but they need to improve this. Oh, the team's great, but look at this. They're not that good at this. This could hurt them. Like, all that stuff, it seems to be a natural instinct to do those kind of things. And I'm not saying those things are incorrect, because I do them as well. But there are times in a season where you should just sit back and be happy with the team you have, and be happy with the results that you're getting, and be happy with how much respect your team and players are getting. So that's all this segment was really about. Nothing too serious for real. Just wanted to give everybody a chance to just remember the team's first in the East, and they have a lot of likable players and markable players. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.